Mark Cuban says, if you're going to trade Luka Doncic, you have to get a better return back. But is there a return out there that would have been worth it to trade Luka Doncic? On today's One More Thing of Locked On Mavs.
I'm here because I have to.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
It's me versus the machine.
Nice penetrating thrust to the middle.
People forget about Frank.
Hot man, the hot player.
Wait. One more thing.
Fired up.
Yeah, it's a one more thing. You're locked on the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Isaac. I'm one of your co-hosts. Cover the Mavs in my 10th season alongside Nick Angstead. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On NBA your second listen of the day. Guys, you know the two things to sign up for if you're a true Mavs fan. Well, it's being tested this year. So that's our Locked On Mavs Insider program. We text you all the latest news, rumors. We do Q&As, all the stuff. And we have a free newsletter. It's sent to you one newsletter a day. It's for free. Sent to your email. You can find out how to subscribe to either of those through the QR code on the screen, or you can go to lockedondaily.com. Today, I want to talk about a topic we haven't talked about in a long time, and that's Luka Doncic. But no, seriously, there was a couple of things. I've actually been kind of, working on this type of one more thing for a little bit. And now I'm like, all right, I feel like I have to do it since Mark Cuban said something. Mark Cuban, basically said, Nick and I did a show on this a couple of days ago. He's like, hey, if you're going to trade Luka Doncic, that's one thing, but you got to get a better return. And so immediately it's like, and he threw out there, he's like, if you got 4 first-round picks back, with Anthony Davis and Max Christie, it's just been a different type of conversation. Immediately I did a Q&A a few days ago on our Insider program, which shout out to everybody who sent in questions. We get so many of questions on there, and I actually really loved doing those. And it takes a while to go through them all and answer all the questions, put it into a document, and we send it out. But multiple questions on, well, if would you have been okay if we got 4 first-round picks from the Lakers? And I go back to a few weeks ago whenever the report came out. It was like, hey, Dallas, called about Anthony Edwards, and I was like, all right, would that have been worth it? So let's just, for today's one more thing, let's have that conversation. What would have been worth it in a return package for Luka Doncic if you're going to have to trade him? Now, that's a whole different conversation itself. It's like, dude, you never traded Luka Doncic. I get that 100%. I'm with you. They shouldn't have traded him. All right, we've covered this a million times. But let's say they're committed to trading him. They're going to have to trade him. What type of package would you have to get in return to where you feel like, okay, you feel a lot better about it, or it's not that bad, right? Or, man, okay, all right, I could kind of see both sides on that. Let's start right there with what Cuban said. Since we did get asked this, I got asked this multiple times the other day. Hey, if the Lakers, if it was 4 first-round picks, 4 unprotected, which I don't even know if they can really do that. I don't think they can. With Anthony Davis, with Max Christie, how would you have felt about that? Would you have been down to do it then? No. There's no package. There's no trade package that the Lakers could have put together in which I'm like, all right, sweet, we're sending Luka to the Lakers. There's just not. There's not a combination of players or picks that I'm going to get back, from the Lakers that which they had, in which I'm like, all right. As we go through this episode here, there are a couple things later on that I'll be like, I'm listening. If there's a couple things on the table that I'll mention later on, but that has nothing to do with anything the Lakers have to offer. Anthony Davis, good player. We know the injury history. Max Christie, fun player, good young player. But there's no iteration of a Lakers package that would have been worth it for me. No, sorry, hang up. Get a new cup of coffee at Ascension at that point. So what would you have to get back? And somebody asked me this the other day in that Q&A too. Is like, well, what would the package have to be? And I was like, well, you got to start with some type of young creator, right? Like, I think you have to, if you're going to trade a Luka Doncic, the package back has to be centered around a young stud who's preferably a creator at the guard spot or the wing spot. That's just like where I'm starting. Then I'm wanting like another young player. Then I'm wanting all the draft picks that you could possibly pack into the American Airlines Center If you could make anything a draft pick, like a physical object, you're getting every pick that you possibly have. Luka's 25. Like when they traded him, it's not unheard of to say like, oh, you're overvaluing it at that point. It's like, no, it's not. Like 25-year-old generational stars don't get traded. So let's let's talk about Anthony Edwards for a second. So, that report that comes out, I think it's The Athletic, says, hey, Dallas, called Minnesota and was like, hey, what about Anthony Edwards? And Minnesota was like, no, because we don't trade young stars like this. There's a connection Anthony Edwards has to the city. Even if Minnesota's looking at it and they're saying, hey, we know Luka's better than Anthony Edwards, there still is the margin that wide, considering the age, considering the connection to the city and like what your fan base has with Anthony Edwards and Ant and all those different stuff and the trajectories on is the difference in talent right now that wide for you to make that deal. That's probably why they're like, no, sorry, we're not trading Anthony Edwards. All right. From a Dallas Mavericks perspective, if they were committed to trading Luka and they got Anthony Edwards back in return, I think it's a much different conversation. That's one of the few players out there that I'm listening to, that I'm having some type of conversation on of, all right, now we're talking. You're looking at, the age difference or, of an Anthony Edwards compared to a Luka Doncic that is a lot different than Anthony Davis, right? Like Anthony Davis already in his low 30s, but you start looking at, an Anthony Edwards and you're like, all right, you're looking at a 23-year-old compared to Luka at 25. He's already a young stud in the league. He's, a budding superstar, however you want to describe that. But it's like, all right, this is the type of player that if you're going to trade Luka Doncic, that's the type of player that you're going to try to get back in return. I think it's kind of funny that report came out there and was like, what makes you look a little bit better is if you're like, dude, we called one of the few teams out there has a young stud out there, but they said no. We tried to do something else. We looked around, it's like, no, not really. Pretty set on Anthony Davis on that. But so is there any option out there that you're like, what are the options? For me, I think you're looking at it and you're saying, there was a report that was like Nico Harrison was committed to trading Luka by the summer, or at least sometime this offseason. Nico talked about, we're headed to this tumultuous summer, the extension, if they weren't committed to giving the extension and all that stuff. Well, what's before all of that? The NBA draft. And I think if there's so many things wrong that happened with this process of the trade and all this different stuff, but at least wait till the draft, because then you get to see, this is an awesome draft. Especially at the top, like you're looking at the Dylan Harpers and the Cooper Flags and Ace Baileys, but then after that, there's some good players that I really like this draft, but it's mainly you're looking at the top. That's when everybody's kind of like open for business and stuff around the draft, but wait until you're around the draft. I look at, so I naturally start looking at the different teams through there that could be, a top 3 pick in this year's draft. Now, I look at a team like Utah. All right. In Utah, I think there even was a report, correct me if I'm wrong on this, a while back, which this is always funny too. Danny Ainge, Utah, eyeing Luka's future free agency. And it's like, all right, I think everybody is really. But, they're stockpiling these picks. They want to make a run at Luka and all this stuff. Well, what's the best package that you could possibly get from Utah? Lauri Markkanen, Cody Williams, their unprotected 2025 first, which could be a top 3 pick. Let's just say it lands at 1 at Cooper Flag. And then like some more first in the future. Would Cooper Flag, Lauri Markkanen, and Cody Williams and future first get the deal done for a Luka Doncic? Call me crazy, but I just don't think. I think I would rule out the Jazz in that. I just don't. I'm not taking that, because I want to go back to that framework of what I'm saying of like, if you're going to trade Luka, you got to get a young stud back, an Anthony Edwards type with a little bit more. depending on the talent level of that young stud, then you got to get a lot more than that. Let's take a quick break, and I'm going to actually give you some trade packages that I would be interested in, that I would have listened to if I was in the seat of Nico, and boy, would that have been a different situation if that was the case. All right, let's take a quick break. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel's been our friends for a long time. March Madness is coming up. It's here. FanDuel's giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. If you're an SEC fan, this is, man, what a year for you guys. I mean, who doesn't like the Cinderella story? The underdog in March Madness. Take advantage of that. If you're confident in a team making a run, you can go to FanDuel for that. FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. This podcast is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money, in which I don't see we have a lower third for this. All right. Monarch Money. Guys, ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, literally just had this conversation with my wife. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, give you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with a partner is smoother than ever. You can track and share personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Man, this sounds pretty good. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, baseball here, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, here we are. All right, let's talk about some other trade possibilities. Once again, we're talking about Mark Cuban saying, "Hey, you got to get a trade package better than what you did if you're going to trade a Luka Doncic." Once again, I'm talking about with the premise of, if you don't trade Luka Doncic, point blank, done. There you go. But we're gonna, for the sake of this show right now, this episode, we're talking about, if you trade Luka Doncic, what are some deals that would have at least had a bigger conversation or made a little bit more sense? Because I think it's very slim about the possibilities of what that would look like. All right, so let's keep on going. Is there any other player, if you're talking about single players out there, who are the single players that you would listen for or listen to a deal for Luka Doncic? Call me insane. I think it's just two players. I think it's Anthony Edwards. I think it's Wembanyama. Done. Those are the only two young players. Those are the only two players that I'm not hanging up at the phone. Because even if you're looking at like a Giannis or a Jokic or somebody, along that caliber of player, they're in their 30s already. Luka's 25. So you're looking at like a 6-year difference between the two. I mean, I guess you have the conversation, but Luka's that good. He's a top 5 player in the league. So that's the other thing. It's like, you can't trade Luka just for picks, right? It can't just be a ton of draft picks. You can't do that. You got to have some, face of a player coming back. You can't trade Luka for an older all-star. We did. You can't trade Luka for an equal talent either. You can look across the league and look at like a SGA or a Tatum or something like that, and you're like, all right, well, Luka's like, I get that they're young, around the same, but Luka's better than them. It's like, yeah, he is. He's better than them. So that's why it's like, he's better than Anthony Edwards, but you like kind of get it because of the age difference, and Edwards is younger, obviously Wemby and all that. Those are the only two players I'm not hanging up on. But both those franchises aren't trading those guys right now. We'll see what happens with Minnesota down the line with Edwards. But all right, so let me throw out some things to you. Let's say the Pelicans win the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, and the Mavs still had Luka, but Nico's like, man, I got to trade. I'm trading Luka this summer. They call up New Orleans and they're like, hey, I want Zion, Cooper Flag, and Jordan Hawkins. Are you saying yes or no? I'm still saying no. Sorry. Zion's still just that big of a question mark for me. He's been playing great when he's healthy. He's a lot of fun when he's healthy. And you can't just do the equal Luka for Cooper Flag, even though I'm super high on Cooper Flag. I like Dylan Harper too, but I'm super high on Cooper Flag. You just can't do those straight up. I'm sorry. I can't. Some of you out there might because he's so young. I've thought about this one a lot regarding, we had a podcast a while back, myself, Slightly, Nick, and we're talking about just off-season trade stuff. If it's not KD, who could be somebody that to go after? And I threw out Jaylen Brown's name. And I started thinking when I was like, man, like what if they actually did put Luka on the market, and wouldn't Boston call with a Jaylen Brown offer? Like to say, hey, we would pair Luka. Now, Bill Simmons with Luka would have been unbearable, even more. But Jaylen Brown, he's 28. He's older than Luka. I get it, but I'm still saying no. I'm sorry. Like I just feel like that they would call, but I'm still saying no. And I think a lot of you guys would say no too. All right. Here's a couple. Let me give you two more that I'm saying no to also, because I think you got to look at the draft, whoever wins the lottery. If Charlotte wins the lottery and they're like LaMelo and Cooper Flag, no, sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm just not the biggest LaMelo Ball fan. Fun. I think he's fun. I think it'd be fun to have like All-Star weekend because it's entertainment. But yeah, Scotty Barnes and Cooper Flag in a deal for Luka Doncic with draft picks. How high are you on Scotty Barnes? No, sorry, not doing it. All right, here's a couple. Here's two. If we're not doing the like Edwards for Luka, Wemby for Luka, here's two trades that I'm thinking about that I'm sure y'all are going to yell at me. They call up Orlando. It's Paolo. It's Jonathan Isaac because of the money. They need the bigger contract. It's Anthony Black, and it's 4 first-round picks and swaps or whatever it is. And you're like, hey, why would Orlando do that? Well, one, they have Jamal Mosley, coach that has a great relationship with Luka. They have Franz Wagner. So then they go into it saying, hey, we're upgrading from Paolo to Luka, and we're pairing Luka and Franz Wagner together with a defensive point guard in Jalen Suggs. I know he got hurt. With our head coach, Jamal Mosley, and we feel like we can build a contender around them in Orlando. If you're Dallas and you're committed to trading Luka, you get a stud back in Paolo. I'm a big Paolo guy. You get, Anthony Black in this deal, which I liked him coming out of the draft, young player, and you get the 4 first-round picks. I'm having the conversation if it's that. Still not going to trade Luka for that. Sorry. The next one is centered around if Philly landed the first pick in the draft, Cooper Flag and Tyrese Maxey and some iteration of picks or whatever for Luka. In this case, you're getting the young stud back in a Cooper Flag, who I think is going to be an awesome NBA player for a long time. You're getting back a Tyrese Maxey, who's a young stud of an all-star. You're getting picks. I think I'm having the conversation. At least having the conversation. Still not going to trade Luka, but I'm at least having the conversation. And this just shows you how hard it is to trade a Luka, or let me rephrase that. How hard it should have been to trade a Luka. Because if you go by just for me, and this is all my opinion here, it would take Edwards, Wemby, or some combination of what Orlando could offer with picks and Paolo and young players, and then or some combination of Cooper Flag, Tyrese Maxey, and picks. Those are the only 4 scenarios in which I'm having the conversation in my front office. But I'm still walking out of that saying, I'm sorry, I just can't trade Luka Doncic. So I get what Mark Cuban said of like, hey, if you got a better return back for Luka, it would have changed things and all this stuff. Yes, it would have lightened the blow a little bit. It's like, cool, we got these draft picks that, cool, you're going to get Lakers picks in which Luka's going to a team that's always going to be good probably. is hardly any. Those are the very slim ways in which I'm having the conversation around a Luka Doncic trade, and still I wouldn't do that. So there you go. I'm sure you guys love more Luka content. Half of you guys want us to keep talking about Luka. Half of you guys hate that we talk about Luka so much now and want us to move on. So for the 50%, this one's for you. All right. I will be back tomorrow on Sunday for Suns Mavs post game, which is a huge game for the standings for that 10th seed, because I think Dallas is trying to say, Phoenix, please take this from us. But Phoenix, they got a tough stretch coming up. They lost a tough one to Denver, and so I'd honestly be pretty surprised if Dallas won this game against the Suns on Sunday. Not because, anyway, because I think that's what they want to do. Guys, talk to you soon. Peace out. Boom. Staring at my